Her name is Carol. She's 63 years old. She moved from Columbus, Ohio to Sarasota in the spring of 2022. And right now, she's standing in her kitchen, surrounded by moving boxes she never expected to unpack again. Carol did everything she thought was right. She visited twice. She hired a local agent. She bought a 3-bedroom home in a neighborhood with mature trees and a community pool. What nobody told her, or what she didn't know to ask, was that her property sits in a FEMA flood zone and that Florida's insurance market was quietly entering a crisis that would reshape the economics of homeownership across the entire state. Her first premium, $4,000 a year, manageable, almost reasonable. Her premium today, $11,000, and climbing. That's not a typo. That's a $917 monthly expense she didn't budget for, didn't see coming, and now can't escape without selling into a market that's already softened. On Zillow, the typical Sarasota home value has slipped to around $460,000, down about 1%, and Redfin has the county's median sale down more than 5%. The equity she counted on as an escape hatch is thinning just as her costs climb. The boxes around her aren't from moving in. They're from getting ready to move out. Carol isn't a cautionary tale about bad luck. She's a cautionary tale about bad information. After this channel's last video, the one ranking towns to avoid, the comment section asked one question over and over. Fine, but where would you go? This is that answer. One town, one honest case. And before I name it, there's a data point about this place that's going to sound like I made it up. So before naming anything, a framework had to be built, not a gut feeling, not a vibe check. A set of 4 hard filters, pass or fail, applied to every viable Florida market on the board. Filter 1, insurance survivability. Average annual homeowners premium under $4,000. Flood zone X or X500 preferred. Citizens insurance available as a legitimate backstop. Miami-Dade doesn't survive this filter for 30 seconds. Average premiums there are pushing $8,000 to $12,000 annually, and in some zip codes, private coverage has simply vanished. Gone. Agents aren't slow-walking renewals. They're sending non-renewal letters with 30 days notice. And once a private carrier drops you, the replacement quote never comes back lower. Filter 2, affordability trajectory. Median home price under $350,000 with year-over-year appreciation under 8%. That ceiling matters. Above 8%, you're not buying a home. You're catching a bubble someone else inflated. Naples fails this one badly. Redfin's median closed sale there that has been running near $1.3 million. The buyer's still largely cash. If you need a mortgage, Naples moved on without you. Zillow's value data tells the rest of the story. The towns that clear this filter hold a steady, survivable price, not the kind floating on out-of-state cash. Filter 3, tax and assessment exposure. No pending condo special assessments, county millage rate under 9 mils, no municipal utility debt being quietly passed to residents. This is where Tampa stumbles hard. Following the Surfside-driven inspection mandates, condo buildings along Tampa's waterfront corridor are issuing special assessments averaging $42,000 per unit. Picture a retired teacher named Dennis who bought a 2-bedroom unit in 2021 thinking his HOA fees covered everything. They did, until they didn't. His assessment notice arrived on a Tuesday. $42,000 due inside 18 months for structural work he'd never been told the building needed. On Redfin, units in his tower started repricing downward because every buyer now asks the same question first. What's the assessment? And is another one coming? Filter 4, lifestyle infrastructure. Within 45 minutes of a major medical center, functional grocery and retail access, at least one meaningful cultural or outdoor amenity. St. Augustine passes 3 filters cleanly, then hits a wall on insurance in its historic flood corridors. A market can win 3 out of 4 and still be the wrong answer because the filter it fails is the one that quietly drains you for as long as you own the home. 4 filters, dozens of markets. Only 2 passed everything. The first of those 2 was Ocala. Marion County, sitting in north-central Florida, equidistant from Orlando and Gainesville, surrounded by horse farms and Silver Springs, and the kind of quiet that coastal Florida sold out decades ago. Median home price, $268,000 as of late 2024. And today, Zillow puts the typical Ocala value right around $272,000, essentially flat over the past year, with Redfin pegging Marion County's median sale near $280,000. Average annual insurance premium approximately $2,800, not $3,000, not $4,000, $2,800 against coastal equivalents running $6,000 to $12,000 a year. Run that gap over 30 years of retirement. That's $100,000 that stays in your pocket instead of vanishing into a premium. And here's what the current data actually says about Ocala. Redfin now shows the typical home taking roughly 60 to 90 days to sell, longer than a year ago, and Zillow has values essentially flat. That's normalization, not weakness. For a patient buyer, a flat market with the lowest premiums on this list is close to ideal. A retired nurse named Patricia ran exactly this math on her kitchen table in Dayton, Ohio. She circled Ocala in red pen. But here's where Ocala hits its ceiling. UF Health, the nearest major hospital system with genuine specialty care, is 40 minutes north in Gainesville. The local Advent Health campus is still building out. For a 63-year-old managing a chronic condition, 40 minutes isn't a commute. It's a risk calculation. The job market is thin for anyone under 65 who isn't in agriculture, healthcare, or logistics. And the Interstate 75 corridor is already pulling sprawl pressure southward. The lifestyle advantage Ocala offers today could compress meaningfully within 5 to 7 years. Ocala is a legitimate choice, especially for full retirees with clean health histories. But it has a ceiling. The town I'm about to name has a runway, and it has one thing Ocala doesn't, something that changes the entire calculus. That something is geography. Lakeland, Florida, population 112,000 and growing, median home price $294,000. And Zillow backs that up almost to the dollar, with the typical Lakeland value going to pending in about 16 days, below the state median, where the median has become a punchline. But here's the number that stopped me cold. Average homeowners insurance premium in Polk County, approximately $2,600 annually. Multiple private carriers still writing policies here. Citizens Insurance available as a backstop. For context, that's less than what Carol is paying per month in Sarasota. Carol's monthly premium in Sarasota is larger than an entire year of coverage in Lakeland. Same state, same insurance crisis on the news every night, completely different reality on the ground. And the only variable that changed was the map. Here's what that means in practice. A couple relocating from Cincinnati, call them the Garcias, has watched the Florida horror stories and stayed skeptical. But when they run the actual numbers on Lakeland, something unexpected happens. The math works. Not barely, genuinely. They pull the comparable sales on Zillow and find a typical Lakeland value just under $293,000, essentially flat on the year. They check Redfin and see Polk County's median sale holding near $315,000, roughly flat year over year, with the price per square foot down about 3% and inventory climbing past 4 months of supply. Soft enough to negotiate, stable enough to trust. Polk County's millage rate sits at approximately 8.5 mils, no municipal income tax. And inside city limits, you have Watson Clinic and Lakeland Regional Health, a full-service medical center with a dedicated cancer center and cardiac program. That's the filter Patricia in Dayton couldn't clear with Ocala. Lakeland clears it without breaking a sweat. Downtown has quietly transformed. The Lake Mirror Promenade, a working farmers market, a restaurant corridor that simply didn't exist a decade ago. Florida Polytechnic University anchors the eastern edge, pulling in young researchers and professionals, the demographic that sustains a town's momentum. That matters more than it sounds. A retirement town with no young people has an expiration date. A town pulling in researchers, nurses, and logistics professionals has a future, and futures protect home values. And then there's the I-4 corridor, Tampa, 45 minutes west. Orlando, 50 minutes east, two of Florida's largest job markets, accessible without living inside either one's housing bubble. That's geographic arbitrage, and almost no Florida market can offer it. You get two major metros without paying the insurance premium of either coastline. In a state where the coast is what's breaking people, sitting inland isn't a compromise. It's the strategy. But I promised you honest trade-offs. So here's what Lakeland gets wrong. Lakeland holds a designation that sounds like a marketing stunt, but is backed by decades of meteorological data. It is the lightning capital of the United States. That isn't a quirky fun fact. It's a structural reality that reshapes outdoor life from June through September. Morning walks, evening runs, weekend festivals, all of it operates under a 4-month asterisk. If your retirement vision is built around being outside, that asterisk matters. Second, there is no beach. Clearwater is roughly 75 minutes away in real traffic, not Google Maps traffic. For buyers who picture sand and salt air as part of daily life, Lakeland is structurally the wrong answer, not a minor inconvenience. The wrong answer. Third, the downtown revitalization is genuine, but uneven. Drive through the 33805 corridor, and the visual weight of decades of disinvestment is still there. Property crime in that zip code runs above the state average. Not every neighborhood carries the same story. The revitalization is moving in the right direction, but it hasn't arrived everywhere, and the gap between blocks can be a single turn of the wheel. You buy this town by the neighborhood, not by the name on the sign. And fourth, Polk County's school ratings are mixed. For buyers with grandchildren making extended visits or families with children still at home, that's a real consideration, not a footnote. So which of Lakeland's downsides would be a deal breaker for you personally? Drop it in the comments. The answers shape where this channel goes next. None of these disqualify Lakeland for the right buyer, but they absolutely disqualify it for the wrong one. So who is the right buyer? Meet David and Carol. He's 62, she's 58. They live in a brick colonial outside Columbus, Ohio, where David does occasional consulting for a logistics firm with a Tampa office, and Carol has spent the last 2 years quietly researching cardiac care centers across the Southeast. Because her mother had a heart attack at 61, and Carol is not the kind of person who leaves things to chance. Their budget is $320,000. Their current homeowners insurance in Ohio, $6,400 a year. They've already ruled out Sarasota, too expensive. Port Charlotte, flood zone exposure made the insurance math ugly. The Villages, Carol's words, not mine, were not ready to disappear into a bubble. What they want is a real downtown, walkable, with a hospital that actually has a cardiac program. They don't want a gated community an hour from anything. They want a front porch, a walkable street, and the confidence that if something goes wrong at 2 in the morning, the right hospital is 15 minutes away, not 40. Lakeland answers every single item on that list. Here's what their hypothetical purchase looks like. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in the Dixieland Historic District at $298,000. Insurance approximately $2,500 annually. Property taxes at Polk County's millage rate, roughly $3,800 per year. Total annual carrying cost, around $6,300. Compare that to coastal Sarasota, where a comparable home runs $12,000 or more per year in combined insurance and taxes. That's a gap of nearly $6,000 every year. Over a 20-year retirement, you're looking at $120,000. Real money that stays in their lives instead of evaporating into premiums. If you've sat at a kitchen table with a spreadsheet and a creeping sense that Florida's costs are quietly impossible, subscribe to FloridaPulse and join the buyers who do the actual math before they sign. Does the David and Carol profile match your situation? What's the one box on your list that no Florida market has checked yet? Tell me in the comments. Before we get to the one development that makes the timing of all this unusually specific, here's something worth having if you're weighing any of these moves yourself. Every town worth buying into and every town worth steering clear of in this state is now in one place. 40 Florida towns, 20 rated to buy, and 20 rated to avoid, in a single guide called the Florida Buy and Avoid List for 2026, with the real numbers on prices, insurance, and assessment risk for everyone. It's the same four-filter logic I just walked you through, already run across 40 markets, and the link is in the description if you'd rather have the finished list than build it yourself. But stay right here, because what's coming next resets the timing on this entire decision, and it's the part almost nobody is talking about. But there's one more thing I haven't told you, something happening in Lakeland right now that makes the timing of this specific. Not general, specific. That something is the I-4 Beyond project. If you haven't heard of it, you're not alone. I-4 Beyond is a major expansion of the I-4 corridor running directly through Polk County, with significant completion phases scheduled for 2026 and 2027. And here's why that matters. Historically, major highway expansions in Florida have preceded appreciation spikes of 15 to 22% in adjacent secondary markets within 3 years of completion. Not everywhere, not automatically, but consistently enough that the pattern has a name among regional analysts. Lakeland sits directly inside that corridor. Improved access pulls in employers, commuters priced out of Tampa and Orlando, and the developers who follow both. That's rising demand against a fixed supply of well-located homes, and that pushes price in only one direction. Think about what that means for a buyer closing in early 2026. You are buying before the ribbon cutting, before the access improves, before the developers reprice the land. But the infrastructure window isn't the only one closing. Florida's insurance market is in a fragile stabilization right now. After legislative reforms in 2022 and 2023, several private carriers re-entered the market, and Lakeland's non-coastal position makes it one of the clearest beneficiaries. Analysts at the Insurance Information Institute are explicit. This window could narrow sharply if another major storm season reshapes carrier appetite. One bad August. That's all it takes. Lakeland's premiums look this good partly because the carriers came back, and carriers can leave as fast as they arrived. And here is the current read on price. Zillow now shows the typical Lakeland home essentially flat over the past year at around $293,000, while Polk County values are up just over 1%. Redfin has the county's median sale roughly flat as well, near $315,000, with price per square foot down about 3%, and homes now sitting close to 70 days as inventory builds toward a buyer's market. Still well below Florida's median of nearly $400,000. A pause, not a peak, which is exactly the kind of window that does not stay open once the access improves. 3 forces, 1 window. It is not a forever window. So here's what I'd actually do, not as a content creator, but as a buyer. First, I'd target the Dixieland Historic District or the Lake Hollingsworth Corridor. These are the neighborhoods with the long-term value retention, walkability, character, and the kind of bones that appreciate when everything around them gets more expensive. I'd avoid the 33805 zip code for now. The city's investment there is real, but it hasn't matured yet. Don't buy ahead of infrastructure you can't verify. Second, I'd budget insurance at $3,000 annually, even if your first quote comes in lower. Florida's market moves fast. Build the buffer before you need it. A renewal is the real number, and renewals in this state have a habit of climbing. Third, before any offer, I'd order a 4-point inspection and a wind mitigation report. Lakeland's older housing stock carries some deferred maintenance in the roof age category, and a wind mitigation discount can quietly save you $400 to $600 a year on premiums. That's money you find before closing, not after. Fourth, call Polk County Property Appraiser's office directly. Homestead exemption filed in year 1 saves roughly $750 annually. That's not automatic. You have to claim it. Fifth, and this is the one that cuts through all the data, visit in July, not January. If you can genuinely love Lakeland in July, with the heat pressing down and the afternoon thunder building over the lake, you'll love it the rest of the year. If July breaks you, no spreadsheet saves the decision. If you're the kind of person who tests a place in July instead of cherry picking the easy months, subscribe to FloridaPulse and join the buyers who don't outsource their due diligence. And which of these 5 steps did you not know before today? Drop it in the comments. Which brings me back to the woman with the boxes. Carol's mistake wasn't moving to Florida. Her mistake was optimizing for the dream before she built the framework. She wanted the Gulf view. She got the flood zone. And Florida has a version of that trap in every market. The thing that looks like the answer until the insurance bill arrives, or the assessment letter lands, or the first July breaks you. Lakeland isn't a compromise. It's what happens when you let the framework lead and let the dream follow. Here's what to carry out of this. The framework I walked you through works for any market. Run it on any town. The 4 filters don't care about Gulf views or downtown murals or what your brother-in-law told you at Thanksgiving. They just return a number. And the town at the end of that process is your town, not mine. Carol eventually found hers. It wasn't Lakeland, it was Ocala. She used the same 4 filters. She visited in August, she stayed.